Hello and welcome. I'm Kimberly Underwood, Senior Editor at AFCEA International Signal Magazine. I'd like to welcome you to our executive interview series. Today, we're going to talk about identity cloud environment. I'm sitting down, virtually of course, with Sean Frazier, Federal Chief Security Officer at Okta. Sean, who is a CISSP, has almost 30 years of experience as a systems engineer, chief technology officer, and chief information security officer with organizations such as Duo Security, Mobile Iron, Blue Box Security, and Cisco. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks, Kimberly. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Well, let's jump in. Sean, can you talk about the basics of the Okta Identity Cloud and kind of what that is, and what are the high-level elements people should consider who may be working in the federal IT space? Thank you.
Absolutely. So if you think about, and it's good to think about kind of where Okta came from, right, and how long we've been around. So Okta was founded about 10 years ago. And if you think about what was happening about 10 years ago, there was this massive shift to cloud computing. There was also this massive shift to kind of mobile endpoint for access. So this mobility thing was happening, this cloud thing was happening. And Todd and Freddie, our two founders, came from Salesforce, where they saw the cloudification of customer relationship management and thought, you know what? There needs to be an identity cloud. And identity cloud really is thought of as a kind of a primary cloud. It's kind of a first-class citizen in the cloud environment to provide access to all these services that were exploding at the time. So that's really where Okta came from. So Okta is the identity cloud. We were born on the cloud. We are here to provide cloud services, single sign-on, adaptive multi-factor authentication, and basically identity security to modernize identity infrastructure and to modernize the security as people move into the cloud.
Right, sure. And how does Impact Level 4 or IL4 and advanced identity lead to information technology modernization and innovation?
So my role at Okta is really to kind of shepherd the federal program and to support our federal mission partners in delivering modernized identity and modernized security platforms. And this is really where IL4 becomes important. And it's important to understand what IL4 is. IL4 is Impact Level 4, which is really geared towards cloud adoption at a certain data assurance level. So if you think of controlled but unclassified data, that's really where IL4 sits. So if you're a mission partner and you're delivering services where you need identity and access management and you need security, you need that higher level of assurance every time you move up the data stack. So you can certainly start with an IL2, Impact Level 2, for official unclassified data. But as you move into other environments where you do have kind of a higher level of data assurance requirements, that's where IL4 becomes super important. And it's not an easy journey for cloud service providers to get there, but it's well worth the investment because we're really here to help support our mission partners as they modernize. And if you look at anyone across Air Force or the Marine Corps or the Navy, they're all in this race to modernize their infrastructure. So a lot of things that they've been using, things like common access cards and kind of what I consider kind of older school PKI infrastructure for identity. These things have been around for 20, 25, 30 years, and they're getting a little long in the tooth, and they don't adapt well to the new cloud mobile world we find ourselves in. So we find ourselves in an area where we're actually delivering accelerated kind of agile development, but the security hasn't kept up with that. So that's really the opportunity here, is really to have security be just as agile or just as part of the conversation and really just as modernized. Because we talk about modernization as digital transformation. So accessing things online that typically were paper process where you go to a building to do it or you go to a physical place to do it. But identity has to be part of that, and security has to be part of that too. So it has to be part of the bargain as you're modernizing your infrastructure. And that's really where kind of this cloud infrastructure comes from, and certainly where again, as you look at to encompass all of your use cases and all of your data elements, IL4 becomes super important.
Right, sure. And can you talk about the importance of zero trust security to the cloud, how you at Okta are enabling ZTA, and maybe some examples of agencies' use of zero trust?
Yeah, I think that zero trust security is like peas and carrots to cloud. You really can't have cloud infrastructure and have kind of old antiquated security models. And you think of zero trust as being a security model. I always call it a lifestyle choice. A lot of people call it a mindset shift in security. And I think 10 years from now, we won't be calling it zero trust. We'll just call it security because we've kind of adapted to that. But being able to make sure that the security is agile, flexible, and built in, so it's part of the DNA of your architecture, is exactly what zero trust is. And where we sit in that stack, and why we're very kind of important to the conversation, is that in the zero trust world, you inherently don't trust anything. So you really assess trust every single time, and you do it continuously. So every time someone comes in to request access to something, you're assessing the trustability of that request. And we sit at the front door of that. We're an identity and access management solution where, when someone requests access to something, we're usually the first application that someone hits. And I like to call ourselves kind of an identity-centric trust platform, in that we're taking in kind of context from other players, from a lot of our other partners. We're applying that context at the time of need, at the time of request, when a user requests access to something. And we become the gatekeeper. We become the technology that takes all that context, rolls it up into a recipe, and then delivers it at the time the user requests something. And we do it performantly. So we make sure that we're not stepping on the end user experience. We're not adding 10 minutes to a request or an authorization. We're doing that in a matter of seconds as the user authorizes into the application. So that's really our mission, is to not only take that and build that security in every time a user requests something, but do it in a way that actually enhances the user experience, doesn't thwart it.
Right, sure. And in talking about identity and kind of credentialing management, can you explain why certain agencies might go with a software token versus other forms of authentication, like a hardware token or a CAC?
So I think the kind of people putting together the guidance on these things have really been evolving, and really evolving quickly over the last couple of years. If you look at the guidance coming out of the OCIO, the Office of the CIO, and Department of Defense, they've enabled or recommended some additional authenticators, some alternative authenticators. What their recommendations are aligned very well to some of the updated NIST guidance on identity and access management. So 863.3-3, which came out 3 or 4 years ago now, was really kind of had an eye towards modernizing authenticators and modernizing identity. So the use of YubiKey is a good example, right? The Office of the CIO came and said, okay, for a certain assurance level, you can use a YubiKey, which is a hardware token, which could be comparable or considered comparable to a CAC or a PIV, depending on the use case and depending on the application you're protecting. And then, we at Okta have a belief that authenticators should be fluid. So you should be able to use the authenticators that are the strongest that you need for the application, but also the easiest for the users to kind of consume and use. So we can certainly wire in YubiKeys. That's a strong point as well. We can also wire in the legacy. So if someone wants to use a CAC or use a PIV card, they can use that with Okta as well. But our eye is toward modernizing this. So one of the big things that we have kind of coming out in the next short period of time is this thing called FastPass. And FastPass is the ability to get rid of passwords in general, leveraging open standards technology like WebAuthn. So WebAuthn is the W3C authentication standard. And that standard actually is what I consider kind of next generation PKI. So it uses all the strength that we know and love from PKI in the old days, but it applies a more usable user layer to that strength. So we're really excited to be able to kind of roll that out over the next year to two.
Right, sure. And can you talk about DoD in general, and kind of what challenges they face with ID management?
So I think that there's 2 buckets of challenges. One of the challenges that everyone faces, which is there's a lot of legacy. They have a lot of things that have been out there for a while. It costs a lot of money to maintain it, costs a lot of money to update it. So one of the biggest challenges is figuring out kind of where you start on this journey of modernization. And there are some within DoD entities and DoD agencies who've done a really good job of kind of visualizing that and kind of putting a plan in place. There are some that are struggling a little bit, frankly, to figure out kind of where do they modernize, what does that journey look like? And there are some additional challenges that DoD has, in that they have all these different kinds of use cases. And you think about, if I'm coming into a DoD agency, and they have this whole concept of recruitment use case. So recruiters don't have CACs because they haven't been issued a CAC yet, but you still need to protect their data. You still need to allow them to authenticate and log into stuff, especially as you're modernizing your recruitment technology. So leveraging something like a Salesforce or Workday or some cloud service to be able to modernize your recruiting process. And being able to kind of have the modernized identity that goes along with that. And then once you're enlisted or once you're active duty, then you have a CAC, and then you can use that, and you need to be able to kind of fluidly move between the two. And then when you retire, your CAC goes away again. And then you still need to be able to log in to see your retirement benefits and be able to access things and prove who you are. So you need strong identity. So the through line of that is strong usable identity, and being able to kind of flexibly adapt to that is important, but it's also difficult.
Right, sure. And those are most of my questions. Anything else you wanted to add about the Okta Identity Cloud?
I think the big thing is just, realize that we believe, I have a strong belief in the mission partnership and enabling strong identity and enabling strong security that goes along with that, and being good mission partners. So as we look to people within the commands who are moving out, they're modernizing their applications. They're going through a lot of the same journeys that our commercial clients and customers and partners are going through. Realize that we're here to help. We're here to make sure that they can move agilely, so move quickly through the modernization process and make sure the security is baked in.
Right, sure. Well, thank you, Sean, for walking us through that. And thank you to speaking to us about Okta. For more information on the company, please visit okta.com. Thank you and have a good day.
Thanks, Kimberly.